All right, everyone, you ready to have some fun? Yeah! We did a little singing, a little dancing, a little inspiration. Why is it that they never have actual events where there's speakers there? There's singers, there's dancers, but why aren't there actual shows there's actual speakers? Think about this, you know? So I'm curious, who has been to this event before? Raise your hand. 4 people. So let me just first introduce myself. My name is Christopher Kai. I started this 4 years ago, but I've been speaking for over 20 years. I've written 7 books, and so I literally get paid to speak on stages like at eBay, Amazon, and Google, and then I create a coaching program to teach other people how to become speakers and coaches. We live in a world where you don't have to have a boss anymore. We live in a world where you can literally travel wherever you want, share your knowledge, your experience, and have people pay you. So our hope and goal when you come to this GifterX Talks, and mind you, it's called GifterX Talks because your story is gift to the world. And if you really believe that your story is gift to the world, what if you actually had that story be turned into a business? Do you believe that can be possible? I hope all of you know that we live in a world that I could never imagine a kid growing up in Woodside, Queens, New York. Anyone from New York in the place? Any New Yorkers? That is the weakest New York. You some people in New York like, anyone from New York? That is so weak, dude. Come on, you gotta represent New York. Who's from Brooklyn?
Right here.
Manhattan? Queens? Staten Island? Like normally, anywhere you go, who's from New York? There's always some person like, yeah, I'm from New York. You know? Because they assume that when I tell them I'm from New York, like, you don't sound like you're from New York, because they expect me to like, hey, how you doing? I'm from New York. I'm first from New York. They expect the accent that you hear on TV. But when you've left New York for a while, unless you're more of like a blue-collar worker or like a NYPD or like a firefighter, they maybe stick with you, but I haven't gone to New York for many years. But if I say certain words like water, it comes out. But what I'm saying is, we created this GifterX Talks platform to have people come up on stage that are business owners, entrepreneurs from all around the country and world to share stories that hopefully will be a gift to you. Wherever you are in life, hopefully you know that your gift is a story and your story is a gift. And so we're gonna have a few panelists come up here. We're gonna have a few speakers. And then we have our headliner. Do you know who Moishi Mana is? Yes. Who actually lives in Miami, by the way? Who's ever been to New York City? Who's ever been to Singapore? So we have such a treat here because imagine you got to meet Robert Moses, who shaped New York City, where I'm from, born and raised. Imagine you actually get to meet Lee Kuan Yew, who literally shaped Singapore. But Moishi Mana owns 85 buildings in downtown, owns 45 acres in Wynwood. He's the largest private landowner in all of Wynwood. And he's literally shaping this beautiful city we live in. And we get to meet him today. Because literally, this building he owns. So I hope you realize how powerful it is where he grew up in Israel, came here in his 20s, used to sleep on park benches, was a dishwasher, built a moving company, then started buying real estate, and now you all live in Miami, yes? Or mostly? Just think about this. You're meeting the guy that's creating this beautiful city for us, and perhaps we can help create it for him. Because I met many billionaires. I literally wrote a book about that, and if you see books that's laying around, I've written 7, but that one I'm most well known for, which is about how do you network with billionaires and executives. It's a free copy, so feel free to take it. If you want me to sign it for you, I shall. But it's really inspiring to know that there are 8.3 billion people in the world. And there's only 3,424 billionaires-ish, which means they're not the top 1%, they're the top 0.0001%. Now, irrespective if you want to be a billionaire or not, it's about if you're in business, which is a business event, why would you not want to learn from the billionaires who are so rare? They're like the Dalis, the Michelangelos, the Da Vincis. So when I meet billionaires and I learn from billionaires, you're learning the top. Otherwise, why would you waste your time learning from someone else like your people you know? Does that make sense? So I just hope that every person you meet here, both the panelists and the speakers, are gifts to you. Their stories gift to you that you might see yourself on the stage one day or on a bigger scale. I've been doing this for over 20 years, and every time I speak, it's so beautiful to be connecting with people. But what I teach my clients and people I know is how to actually turn that story into an actual speaking business. Okay, so I'm gonna invite 3 panelists up, then we'll have speakers, we'll take a little break, and then we'll have our headliner, Moishi Mana. Who actually knows Moishi, by the way? Anyone actually know Moishi? You know? Yeah, okay. We're gonna meet him shortly. Okay, so we're gonna have 3 panelists. Our first panelist, we have Sonya McDonald. Sonya McDonald was an ER nurse. Think about what she did for a living for 30 years. She literally would help people flatline, bring them back to life. But she chose to take that experience and become an author and a business coach where she teaches entrepreneurs and executives how to have the high performance mentality without literally dying from heart disease. Let's please welcome Sonya McDonald to the stage. Next up, we have Linda. So I used to be a consultant many years ago. And I had a guy that was at 80 million bucks, and I helped him make like $200 million, and he hired me because I used to work for American Express. And so in Linda's case, she has worked for multiple Fortune 500 companies, including Johnson & Johnson and Siemens, which is a $78 billion company. And so she also was educated from the University of Pennsylvania. So she teaches people, how do you actually take what she learned in these global brands and to apply that to your own companies? And even though how many of you actually have your own business, by the way? All of you should all raise your hand, because if you actually want someone else, i.e. a boss, to determine where you live, where you eat, where you sleep, what clothes you wear, where you send your kids to school, where you actually vacation, that's your employer. When you're your own employer, you really get to learn things and have your own life. And with Linda, she teaches you how do you find those gems that these big corporations have used to scale to billions of dollars to apply it to your business. So please welcome Linda Sinisi to the stage.
Thank you.
Lastly, we have my agent sister flying in. So we have people flying in from all over the place. But Teresa Nguyen came from Vietnam. She'll share a little bit more about her story. But she's a trained lawyer, and she's a communications expert. Everything in life, when you think about it, it's a relationship and how you communicate. And for those of you who are under 30, I was talking to a colleague of mine who was 28. And he's like, yeah, my generation, they're having a difficulty communicating. I'm like, why? He's like, I don't know, it's just hard for them. And I thought, well, it's probably because, do you know when the iPhone came out? 2007. So pretty much, if you're under 30, all you know is the iPhone. If you're over 30 or 40, we actually use the phone to talk. We actually use the phone to talk. And I knew this very quickly, because when I started dating girls in their 20s, they're like, why is this creep calling me? But objectively in business, you have to learn to communicate. And so Teresa, she's not only a trained lawyer, she's a communication expert who works with chairmen and CEOs and with companies that are worth billions of dollars. So please welcome Teresa Nguyen to the stage. Okay, so again, we're gonna have a little discussion with our panelists, and let us begin. So in your case, Sonya, again, ER doctor to performance coach, author of Unshakable. Why did you make that shift?
First of all, Chris, thank you for having me here. The reason that I made that shift was back in March of 2020, I ended up not as a nurse, but as a patient fighting for my life for about 8 days in the hospital. Did not know if I was going to make it out alive. And when I was in there in that moment, I saw my daughter through the double glass doors, because it was on isolation. You couldn't be around anybody, and I wasn't allowed to talk to anybody. And in that moment, I saw her eyes piercing through mine, and we just locked eyes, and I made a decision then that I was going to fight for my life, and that I was going to get out of the hospital, and I was going to live differently with my health, and that I was going to write my blueprint, which was my book Unshakable that just came out last year, and basically teaching others how to live well despite any challenges they have. And so that was my turning point.
Great. Who wants to be unshakable? Again, I always love experiences, and to meet a woman that used to be in the ER where literally people are flatlining, and I'm just thinking it's so cool, because in life it's about transferable skills. So imagine what you can learn from her in your business if you learn from her. So with Linda, again, you were in a successful corporate career. were educated at one of the top universities in the world, University of Pennsylvania. And why did you choose to leave that behind and start teaching other people what you learned in the corporate world?
I don't know if anybody else feels. I don't know if anybody else feels this way, but I know for me, I would be in a very demanding job and coming in every day doing what I needed to do over and over and over again, at the same time thinking I can do more. And trying actually to work within the system, right? Which sometimes unfortunately is very structured and very rigid. And even if you have the passion, the desire, the talent, sometimes you don't get that opportunity inside of an organization. And so at a certain point, I just said, you know what? I got to make a change, right? And so that's how it happened.
Nice.
Thanks.
And lastly, with you, Teresa, your story of being on a boat, literally, almost dying from Vietnam, and literally now you're not only a trained lawyer, you're using your gift and your message to help other people craft and share their story. Like I said, you can know all the people in the world, they always say, oh, your network is your net worth. If you don't know how to communicate to that network, you don't have a net worth. If you don't know how to communicate to yourself, it doesn't matter. So in your case, as an expert in communication skills, how did you come through your journey of deciding that skill set, given that you're a trained lawyer?
Thank you, Christopher. First of all, I want to say what a pleasure it is to be within the presence of rock star speakers like yourself and my beautiful co-panelists. For me, I believe to my core that communication can literally transform your life and your whole trajectory. How do I know this? Is because I lived that life. I came from Vietnam. We left with our family, small fishing boat at sea, 7 days where we faced sharks, storms that could ravage and swallow up our ship in any moment. And then from there, we were lucky enough to be picked up by a cargo ship, stayed in 3 refugee camps before we emigrated to the US. When we arrived here, we came with nothing but the clothes on our backs. Didn't know a word of English. I was the kid who felt silent, unseen, unheard, and invisible. It was the moment when I realized through the power of communication, I had the ability to open up a bridge and access to opportunity and transformation. From that poor kid who wore donated clothes and was made fun of because she spoke broken English, I'm now lucky enough to be an attorney who serves clients throughout the United States. I'm a speaker with over 15 years of experience and a communication coach to executives to lead their organizations. So I feel very fortunate and blessed for that opportunity.
Nice. So let's dive into actual lessons you can learn, because again, I really want you to find nuggets of truth you can apply to your own business. Literally, you used to save lives. You used to save lives as ear nurse. So tell us a story when you were an actual ear nurse. How do you deal with pressure? I mean, we all have pressures. Like, maybe there's a traffic jam. Maybe your lunch came late. But you literally dealt with life or death. So what kind of transferable skills that you learned in the ER can we as business owners and professionals learn from you?
Well, that's a great question. I would say one of the biggest things, as you know, stress kills. It really is just takes over our bodies so quick. And I saw it firsthand working with my colleague in the hospital. She was 30 at the time, and just saw her completely standing next to me. We were working, a single mom, healthy, and she just completely just flatlined and died right in front of my eyes. Had an aneurysm, and it took her so quick. And I just told myself, like, I've got to find ways to help people so they don't let that stress take over their bodies as we all feel stressed. And so in my book, I teach tools. I teach reset tools for our nervous system. One of them is called the Ignite tool, and it's a 60-second nervous system reset that I share. And basically, I just walk you through how to reset your nervous system.
How did you choose the title actually of Unshakable? It's a great title.
I would say when I was fighting for my life in the hospital and was told I was not going to probably be able to make it, and when I fought so hard to get out of there. I knew that nothing was going to shake me.
It's a great title.
Thank you.
You know, branding matters. So if you're going to hook people in with your product or business or coaching, you really want to find a word that hooks people in. So with you, Linda, we talk a lot about sometimes when you get older, people say, oh, I don't know if this person is relevant. They literally just say, hey, you need to leave the company. I know it wasn't in your case, but sometimes in corporate America especially, once you get to a certain age, they're like, you know what, we're paying you this much. I don't know if we want to pay this much. We might hire someone else. So first of all, with Linda, she has both corporate experience, but also entrepreneur experience. So I'm curious, let's say for the professionals here, if they are longer in their career, that they might think of other alternatives of just at a job, what suggestion might you have for them for like a first step? So you've been an entrepreneur for close to 10 years now, you're in the corporate world, so anyone in the corporate world right now, have a job? So what advice might you have for some of the professionals here that have that job, but they might want to actually venture off into their own entrepreneurial adventure?
So I'm going to share something with you that I don't think most people would share with you, right? I know, because I work with people in this state where they're in a corporate job and they want to move on, and they are experts in their field. They know so much about what they do, and they want to be out there to give other people what they know and what they do. What's most important is to find out what people need and what it is they're willing to pay for. That truly is golden.
And how would the big companies like Siemens or Johnson & Johnson decide how to literally work with their clients?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I think some companies get it wrong. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of us working in those companies have to deal with the fact that the company has gotten it wrong, right? And so I remember being in one job where I was leading support for the whole southern area of the United States for all of our clients with a team of people. And I thought to myself, if I could only be in the sales side of the business, because these people are selling something we don't have. they aren't setting realistic expectations. But what I found was they were selling that way because they couldn't sell it any other way. It couldn't be sold unless, sadly, they were, setting an expectation that was not real. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but that's what I've experienced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for you, Teresa, when I was in my 20s, I started taking public speaking classes. And I thought to myself, why don't they teach you this when you're 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old? Because when you actually truly understand how to communicate, you feel like you are the most confident man or woman in the world. And so for you, Teresa, when did you realize, like that moment perhaps, when you're on stage or with someone, because there's one-to-one communication skills, there's one-to-many, and then there's quick thinking. So for you, what was that aha moment where you're like, you know what, this is really a superpower when you learn how to communicate? Because you can clearly tell her she's a very confident, poised speaker, but when did you start realizing, wait, this is something that I should really, really, really hone in on?
For me, it was actually when I was really young. I was a kid with broken English, like I told you before, and there was a time in elementary school where another student falsely blamed me to the teacher for something I didn't do. And I was powerless because I didn't have the words to defend myself. And so at that moment, I made a decision. You know what? I'm going to learn as much English. I'm going to speak as much as I can. I'm going to be laughed at, but only through communication do I have a voice. I can change my destiny. Do you realize that communication can change your life? Because if you're the smartest person in the room, if you bring in the most money, but you can't get that point across to people, your worth is only as good as what you can put forth.
That's great. I always talk about how when I do these, so I have this GifterX Talks community where we invite speakers to profile their stories, and then have a training called Wizard of Words, where we teach people how to become paid speakers. And I show them pictures of paintings and of sculptures. Has anyone ever heard of Jeff Koons? Raise your hand. You know how much that balloon dog cost? It was auctioned for like $58 million. And then I show a painting of like Wilhelm Kooning or Salvador Dali or Michelangelo, and they're like $300 million, $400 million. But what that painting or sculpture is doing is a story that communicating to you all is very expensive. So for you specifically, Teresa, what are some ways you actually help your clients? Is it the posture? Is it tonality? Are there phrases you use to share with them how to be more confident? Like, what are some things, especially since it's an all-women's panel, there's women in the room, like, how many events have you been to? It's usually like all dudes. Now, us dudes are cool, but I want to know that we can learn from everyone, right? But as a woman and as an expert, first just speak for general advice for everyone you can use. But I tell all my female clients, it is different for men and women. There's nothing wrong with that. And we have to own that, earn that, and know that, because, and I told you this, like some men like me, I'm super easy to sell to. If I like it, I'm gonna buy. If not, don't talk to me. You know, but different people with different personalities. But for you specifically, two advices. One is general public for everyone. And second one is specific for women. How should they communicate differently or the same like men?
So the first question is, how can a general person improve their communication? So for me, I mean, we live in a time where we have access to the best information in the world, but that doesn't mean anything if you don't practice. So the number one recommendation I have for everybody is just to practice speaking and record yourself. Record and listen to the tonality, the cadence of your voice. Listen to your the way that you hold out words, where you use filler words. Look at the way you have the micro expressions, because some people, even if you say the most elaborate words, they look dead in the face. You're not convincing anybody, you're not connecting to anybody. So the best advice is to, one, record yourself, listen every day, jot down notes, and see what you can improve on. But if you want to shortcut all that, if you want to learn what is my weakness, what is the quickest way I can improve, hire a communication coach like me.
That's a good answer.
And for women specifically, women, we have so many gifts and abilities to share the world, but often we shrink back, right? We feel, I don't know if I'm good enough. You know, I don't know if I'm good enough to be the presence of all these people. So the number one thing is to work on your presence, your confidence. The volume of your voice does so much, and also your expression. As soon as you walk into the room, before you open your mouth, people have already formed judgments about you based on your visual image.
Great. Let's talk about coaching in general. All of you coaches and all of your speakers. For myself, when you are a speaker, you live a very privileged life. Literally, I've been doing this for over 20 years. You fly private, they treat you really cool, you get to help people. But then 10 years ago, I wrote this book about networking with billionaires, and people have asked me, Christopher, have you considered being a coach? Well, you can go on the computer and like do all these programs. I'm like, I'm not good at computers, don't talk to me about this stuff. Okay? Don't be stereotypical, okay? I'm Asian, I'm not good at computers, okay? But he's like, no, but if you actually create a coaching program online, you can have clients all around the world. And again, I'm not a tech guy, but I'm a business guy, and I'm like, holy cow. My turning point when I was literally flying to Barcelona for a speech, I get off the plane, I was living in Beverly Hills at the time, and I'm in Barcelona, a woman walks up to me and says, Christopher Kai, I'm in your speaker training program. I'm like, oh, hi. Like, when you are a coach online, even if you're horrible at computers like I am, you impact people you don't even know. And it happens all the time. Literally, I was at an event in Atlanta a few weeks ago, and this guy was seeing me online. What I'm saying is, for me, when I realized, okay, it is cool to be a speaker, but as a coach, it could literally be you online every week for an hour. And for those of you who think that you're not experts, or maybe you're intimidated by all the experience here, I had a client named Nguyen who was literally 22 years old, had an Airbnb. So she wasn't perceived as an expert, but she had experience. Do you all want to make $12,000 a year extra on Airbnb? So for her, I said, Lynn, you just find people that have 0 Airbnbs and teach them how to open Airbnbs. So for myself, the turning point was, you know what? Speaking is cool, but the coach, it's so much more scalable. We now have clients in 120 cities and 30 countries. So for all of you, I hope all we are here, examples for who you are out there. So for all of you, when did you decide to be a coach? Frankly, because I never considered being a coach, but I knew that if it's that scalable, that impactful, and by coaching, it can literally be an hour call a week globally. So it saves so much time. And if you have family, I remember I was doing 3 keynotes, 2 of them in my hotel room, and 1 was on a stage in Vegas. So we live in a world that it's so transformational. So just, you kind of share with us why you chose to be a coach. What was that turning point?
Well, the turning point for me was after I left the hospital. I knew I wasn't going to work in the hospital anymore, and I wanted to really give back to all the people that I could help in a way that really made a difference in their life by helping them live healthy and to be impactful in a way where they can just really live their life and not just burn out. And so I knew that I had that gift to share with what I had, since I had burned out for many years doing it. So I wanted to really give that back. So I was just so excited to be a coach, to know that I could impact people.
Great. Linda?
Yeah, so I had an opportunity toward the end of I was in information technology as an executive, and I started teaching individuals who were in leadership roles how to be better leaders, right? And I learned as a result of going to school and becoming an executive coach how the impact of coaching is so much more efficient and more pointed, and people get so much more out of it than if they're sitting in a class. Because one of the things that we learn is that as an adult, you're not going to do something that you don't want to do, and you're not going to do something you don't think you need to do. So with coaching, it's actually perfect for adults, because you get to do what you think you need to do the way you want to do it. And so for me, you're not in a classroom where the teacher's forcing you to do something the way they think you should do it, right? You get to design it yourself. So that was what really drew me in. Yeah, thanks.
I was a speaker for 15 years. Loved speaking. Went from that kid who doesn't speak English at all to someone who couldn't stop talking. I mean, every single report card I had needs control talking. Why would I want to train someone else to be like that, right? But there was a turning point for me. After I made one of my speeches, somebody emailed me after about 2 weeks later, and they said, "Did you know, Teresa, in one of your speeches about finding happiness and doing a gratitude journal, I was in the middle of divorce, painful, abusive relationship, taking care of 2 kids. I was at the depth of despair, but your message really resonated." So I was really touched by that. So I thought, if I can make that impact in one person's life, why not use our gift and abilities to help other people? Because I think that we're here on this earth for a bigger purpose. We're not here just to live out our days being complacent, never chasing our dreams. We're here to serve, and that's what I wanted to do with my power.
That's amazing. Again, there are 3 ways to make money as a speaker. You have the corporate speaking, it's a $1.6 trillion industry. There's the e-learning, which is $800 billion, and there's the self-help personal development, i.e. like Tony Robbins. Do you know how much Tony Robbins can make from one event? Anyone want to guess? From one event? 30 million from one event. So again, I'm a businessman. First, I'll have a day job, work at American Express, because that's what I was told. Go to school, get good grades, get a job, get married, all this bullshit they tell you. Not the marriage part, I'm just saying all this stuff, right? And then I'll be a consultant, but then it's still a lot of work. And then I became a speaker, but really the coaching space, again, the Tony Robbins type space, there is no career or profession in the world that makes more money in less time, has more fun, has more impact in coaching space. Now again, you may or may not know who Tony Robbins is, you may not even like the guy, but when I started realizing it's a $67 billion space, when Warren Buffett took his first public speaking class at age 20, and now he's gonna be 96, and he has a skill they learned from a speaking class that lasted him 76 years, it not only transforms your life, but everyone around you. But what I'm saying is, whatever career you're in right now, whatever business you're in right now, if you add the actual speaking element, I'm pretty much saying, hey, Christina, Eric, you wanna have another 100 grand in your pocket or $1 million in your pocket and inspire more people? If you have knowledge and wisdom and experience, which I believe all of you have, if you think you don't, you're full of shit, you're literally lying to yourself, you're literally cheaters because you're cheating your clients from their experience of knowing you, that's when it shifted for me. Because being a corporate speaker is very challenging. You have to really have worked at like a Johnson & Johnson or other really high level things for them to hire you. But the coaching space, you don't need a degree. You don't even need a certification. You don't even need a book. But if you have an actual story even how to frame that story, it is so inspiring and impactful when you're a coach. So I really encourage you all to consider that. Because again, I never considered doing this. But when you look at the economics, the sustainability, and the impact, let's share an actual client story that you all had, right? In my case, I met a woman named Shelly, who she calls herself the grandma from Idaho. She hires me to speak at a house in Ireland. I go and speak there, help her build her brand, because it matters. You have the connections, the communication skills, but you need credibility. And so she hires me, I help her make like $47,000. I helped her make her first $1 million last year. But she was a grandma from Idaho, worked on a farm in Washington State. At one point, her and her husband couldn't afford their mortgage, and she had to go scrub toilets for a part-time job in an airline. So for me, when I coach, quote unquote, it's because it impacts someone like Shelly, but also her family and her grandkids. So for me, it's very clear that when I have clients, I'm changing their entire generation's lives. So for you all three, share with us an example, because I hope all of them here are examples of who you can be if you're not a coach. Like, who actually is a coach, by the way, out there? Do you find it gratifying as a coach? And some of you might think, well, I have nothing to talk about. Have you ever been asked for your advice? Raise your hand if you've ever been asked for advice. I literally I was at Miami airport, and someone asked me what I do. I told him what I do, and he didn't believe me. I said, so what do you do? He's like, I repair tires at a tire shop. I went on YouTube, tire shop repair coach, and that popped up. I'm just saying, we live in a world that any experience you have, why wouldn't you want to teach someone but get paid for it? Because how many of you have ever been given people advice and they didn't appreciate you? When you create a business out of it, they'll appreciate you more because they're paying for you. So for all of you, tell me a story about one of your clients that you feel you really made a big impact.
I would say the one last year was one of my main ones that really meant a lot to me. I knew him for years. He told me he was getting really, really sick, and he wasn't able to even walk like a block, just out of breath all the time, just hard time breathing. Everything was just really, really uncomfortable. And I worked with him. I helped him with his habits, healthy habits, and just changed all of his dietary and just everything with his nervous system, helping him learn how to not be so stressed out. And he's walking like 7 miles a day. His liver's not in liver failure anymore. He's just changing his diet and just really thanked me. He's like 80 years old now, and he's just doing so amazing.
That's cool.
Yeah, so there's a client that I have, and he is a chief information officer in a global company. He travels all the time, and he's on the board of many companies. He has a very demanding job, and he has people who work for him who he wants to make sure that they contribute as much as they can contribute, because of course they all have so much work that needs to get done. Everybody needs to step up, we'll say, right? And this gentleman also shared with me that their communication style was very different from the person they worked for. And it was challenging to, I guess we'll say, influence, right, above. So through the coaching experience, he was able to not only influence, but he got a promotion. And he changed the way he leads people such that people who didn't even think that they had the ability to do something stepped up, and so they're a much stronger team as a result of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Teresa?
I've helped 8-figure companies win and secure multi-million-dollar transactions through helping the CEO tweak his communication and negotiation skills. So whenever my clients profit, that's always a win for me. But the story that really impacted me on a human component was when a CEO for a women's foundation, a nonprofit, she had just stepped into this role. And she had taken over the position of another CEO who had been very well beloved, stepped down from that role many, many years ago. So when she took over the reins, the reception from everybody else was like, I don't know, you prove yourself to me. They met her with suspicion, lukewarm, right? And so the first time she introduced herself as the CEO to the annual event in front of 800 people, the clap was like this. When she got my help, not only was I a speaker at her event, but I helped her with her communication. It told the company and the people who work for it, her heart, that her values align with the company's message and what they do and how they make a difference. Completely turned around how she was perceived. Not only were people more pleasant with her, they were eager to work with her to implement new policies and change the direction of what they were doing before.
That's amazing. And I also forgot to mention, though I started coaching 11 years ago, I hired coaches over 20 years ago. You don't want to be like me. When I wrote my first book over 20 years ago, it took me 8 years. Because I'll do it myself, it's not that hard. It took me 8 years. And then I had a website, and then I had speeches, and no one cared. I hired a coach, this guy named Dan Pointer, God rest his soul, he's written 100 books, went to this event. Within 8 weeks, I finished my book. So again, don't be like me where I was egotistical, and ego for me stands for erasing great opportunities. Any dream you have, you'll get there faster if you find the right coach. And hopefully the 3 individuals here showed you examples of what they're doing to inspire you to be a coach. The last question I want to ask all of you is, we've all had moments where we literally feel like we're eating dirt. For me, when my mother passed away on Thursday, December 5th, 2019, my birthday is December 10th. So, excuse me, I'm from New York City. I was going to surprise my mother for her birthday. But my oldest brother, Tim, texts me in the morning that day and says, Mom's in the ER. And here's the thing in life. You don't know when your loved ones are going to go. Time is not money. Time is more important than money. As soon as my brother told me Mom's in the ER, I canceled all my meetings, and I thought, worst case scenario, my mom passes away, I'm there with my 2 brothers and my dad. Best case scenario, I see my mother there. Because again, you can think, oh, she'll be fine. You don't know that. But when I got there, literally, she never left the hospital. She died. But during those moments of deep pain, you have both people that you might expect like your loved ones, and then random people. On my birthday, December 10th, I just went to this conference. I met this woman there, and I just told her, because I couldn't really hold my pain, I told her my mom just passed away like 5 days ago, and she told me her father passed away, but she sent me these amazing quotes that kept me just whole. What I'm saying is, you all don't know this. You have friends and family around you that influence you, and sometimes they're complete strangers. We're literally eating dirt, and I will never forget her. That when you reveal yourself, they reveal themselves back. And she was one of the most inspiring people I met ever, based solely on that one moment I felt so deeply scarred and broken that she helped me. And so for you all, you've gone through literally life or death. What's one message when you're at your lowest point that you can share with our audience today?
I would say my moment was when I was almost near death in the hospital, ready to flatline. I would tell people to start living your life while you're here and stop just existing and truly live and make a difference for the people that you love.
That's great. Linda?
You have so much to offer. Think about that. You work hard, you're the best in your game, and you have a lot to give.
That's great. Teresa?
The hardest moment of my life was watching my mom die from cancer. But it also reminded me that we are not promised tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Christopher, how many people did you say take their last breath every day?
There's tens of millions of people.
Right. You don't have tomorrow. And you can't live your life in fear and doubt. And when I have so many moments of self-doubt, you guys. So many moments where I'm like, should I take this road? What if I fail? What if, what's gonna happen to my children if I lose all my money? But then I go back to my purpose. Because do you wanna die slowly in complacency and self-doubt? Or do you wanna make the most of each day, knowing that if I die tomorrow, I did my very best to fulfill my purpose?
That's great. On that point, Ray Cashcare is a former Navy SEAL. He's one of my clients. And I said to Ray, like, how do you deal with that? Like, every day you're going into battle, you could die. He literally said, I just make sure I complete what I'm gonna do today. So for all of you, don't assume you have tomorrow, next month. Like you don't. You can't assume that. So I hope that these amazing panelists on the stage today share with you their stories that is a gift to you so you can be a better gift to other people. So let's give our panelists some love, please. Awesome. Thank you.